What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. Before I get into start our review, we got to talk about Bubba Wallace and his situation. Right as Bubba Wallace was getting out of the car, it looked like he fainted. When he's getting out of the car, he fainted and became lightheaded. As of right now, last time I heard, Bubba Wallace was on a stretcher back to the Infield Care Center. However, when he did get back to the Infield Care Center, he looked like he was fine. Well, he wasn't fine. He was awake and alert, and he's been talking. So that's good news here. I don't know the full reports, but this is according to multiple reports after the race happened. Hopefully Bubba Wallace okay. It was really hot today at Atlanta Motor Speedway, so I can understand what happened. You lose a lot of water in your system, and hopefully Bubba Wallace is okay with the situation and what's going on with him. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get into the interview. And before the interview happened, the race happened today, they had a really cool message that came out in this race. Right before the green flag happened in this race, the drivers were stopped on the front stretch coming to one to go for the race to talk about the situation with George Floyd. And I wanted I've not really talked much about the George Floyd situation in the past, so I kind of wanted to address it here. Racism in this sport is not going to be allowed and tolerated. If you are a racist person, I have no association with you, and I will never associate with you in any shape or form. I just don't want to ever to associate with anybody that is racist, and I will not tolerate discrimination in sport. And I think no one else should tolerate that as well. So today, if you were blocked on Twitter, and there were multiple people like Justin Boston, or whatever his name is, that were blocked on Twitter, don't be surprised you were, because you're being a stupid piece of shit. So don't go ahead and do that crap. That is what I want to talk about the situation. I thought that tribute was really, really good, and that was a really awesome tribute by them as well. So anyway, let's get in and talk about this race, because let me just say for the record, I am ready for shorter races. This race was way too long. This race should have been shorter, and I'm going to definitely pushing for shorter races. In my opinion, unless a race is a crown jewel event, there should not be any race over 400 miles. This race was 3.5 hours long, but it felt like a 5 or 6 hour race. 500 miles, especially Atlanta Motor Speedway. There isn't much strategy in this race. Well, there was some strategy, but there were some lead changes, but there wasn't a lot that happened in this race. Once the leader got out front, they pulled out to a 4 or 5 second lead. Yes, you had quite a few different leaders. You had Chase Elliott in this race. You had Kevin Harvick in this race lead most of it. Mark Truex Jr. led quite a bit. Even Clint Boyer led. But once the leader got out front, it was really difficult to pass. So let's talk about some of the incidents that did happen in this race. Throughout this race, there were a couple cautions that did end up happening in this race. Really only 2 spins happened, and were from the Front Row Motorsports guys. The first big caution of the race will come out for John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek would spin down the front stretch in the grass, bringing out only the second caution of the race with about 10 laps to go in the stage. And then the final caution this race would come out for Michael McDowell. He would end up spinning after contact, what looked like contact from his teammate John Hunter. That would bring out the caution on the end of the second stage with a few laps to go. Mark Truex Jr. Would end up winning both stages after all this happened. It looked like Kyle Busch was probably going to win the second stage of this race, but Mark Truex Jr. was able to get both stage wins. But on the ensuing restart, Kevin Harvick just got by Mark Truex Jr. with 90 laps to go. He would basically check out at the end of this race. And Kevin Harvick, it looked like Truex was going to actually catch Kevin Harvick because he actually pitted a lap earlier. So I thought that Truex would actually get the lead for Kevin Harvick. But I guess Harvick's pit stop was a little bit faster than Truex is on that final pit stop. And in that exchange, Kevin Harvick was able to drive away with the race lead, and Kevin Harvick was able to score his second win of the year and was able to win his 51st career Cup Series race, his third win at Atlanta. My guy to win the race. I picked Kevin Harvick because I thought Kevin Harvick was going to go get his second win, his third win here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He's just been so strong at this racetrack, and he's been so good on that bottom line. It didn't look today, though, he was going to have the best car, because Mark Truex Jr., in my opinion, at times looked better than Kevin Harvick. But once Kevin Harvick got the lead in this race, it just was going to be tough to beat Harvick. Harvick's been so good here at Atlanta since 2014 that it was going to be really difficult to pass Kevin Harvick for the race win. So anyway, let's get into the results of this race. So Kevin Harvick won today's race Kyle Busch actually got around Mark Truex Jr. at the end of this thing and actually came home second. Kyle Busch had a top 5 car most of the day. He never really fell outside the top 5 in this race. But on the restarts, he just never got going. It got to the point where the outside line, which has never been that great here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, it got to the point where the outside actually ended up beating him because Kevin Harvick also spun his tires on that ensuing restart. Kyle Busch came home second. You can't be mad about that. Hopefully Kyle Busch can get a win here very soon because he's been really close to winning races here in 2020. Mark Truex Jr., who looked like he had a really good car today as well, he ended up scoring a third-place finish. Great run for Mark Truex Jr. Ryan Blaney ended up finishing 4th in this thing. We thought he was going to possibly go a couple laps and had to come down pit road because it seemed like he had a vibration, but it looks like it calmed down throughout the run. He comes home with a really solid 4th-place finish, and Denny Hamlin rounds out the top 5 finish. 3 JGR cars in the top 5. Something we really haven't seen that much this year is a JGR cars actually being somewhat strong. Today was Mark Truex Jr.'s only 1st and 2nd stage wins in this race. Kurt Busch comes home with a 6th-place finish. Let me just say, Kurt Busch probably would have ran about this, was running up in the top 10 most of the day. He had a charge from the back. He actually went a lap down because he had to go through a pass-through penalty. But he got really lucky with a timely competition caution, and he came home with a 6th-place run today. Great run for Kurt Busch. Jimmie Johnson, once again, having really solid runs, comes home with a 7th-place finish. He was only 3 points away from locking his spot up to get in the top 12 draws. Dang, so close to getting it, but Jimmie Johnson got another top 10 run. Jimmie Johnson has shown a lot of speed this year. And the second highest finished Chevy. Chase Elliott finishes 8th. Chase Elliott looked at the beginning of this race like he was going to have a really strong car today. But then his pit crew kind of cost him in this race because they just always lost time on pit road. They would lose 1 spot, then 2 spots, then 2 more spots, and then 1 more spot. But he comes home with an 8th-place run. Can't be mad about that. He's been pretty strong this year. Brad Keselowski finishes 9th. He had a decent day. Not much to talk about there. And then Joey Logano finished 10th. Logano looked really strong at the beginning of this race. But he got damaged early in this race. He had some contact with Matt Kenseth on pit road, and he just never could bounce back in this race and get up there and challenge. Austin Dillon finished 11th. That is a really good run for Austin Dillon. He continues to do really well, and I think he's an outside championship contender in 2020. 12th place, Alex Bowman. I expect a little bit more from Alex Bowman in this race, but 12th place isn't terrible, but I wish there was a little bit more from Alex Bowman. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. with a top 15 run in 13th. Another consistent run for Stenhouse. Good on him. Ryan Newman finishes 14th in this race, and 15th place goes to Matt Kenseth after the damage. Kenseth's finally starting to get used to these cars. I think a 15th place run is a pretty solid run. Tyler Reddick finishes the highest for the rookies in 16th. 17th, Eric Almirola. 18th place goes to Christopher Bell. 19th place goes to Cole Custer, and 20th place goes to Clint Bowyer. 21st place goes to Bubba Wallace. I am praying for Bubba Wallace, by the way. 22nd place goes to Chris Buescher. 23rd, John Hunter Nemechek. 24th place goes to Michael McDowell. 25th, Matt DiBenedetto. 26th place goes to Ryan Preece. 27th, Corey LaJoie. 20th, Eric Jones. Eric Jones had a top 10 car most of the day, but he had a cut tire at the beginning of stage 2. He really never could bounce back. I think he also had a drive-through penalty in this race, which kind of cost him a really strong run. He finished 28th today. Ty Dillon finishes 29th, and Brendan Poole finishes in 30th place. 31st goes to Daniel Suarez. 32nd, Quinn Houff. 33rd, William Byron. William Byron actually had a valve stem break on his car. He ended up going a few laps down, and then he had a pass-through penalty. He ends up finishing like 14th laps down and like 33rd, so a really bad day once again for William Byron. Byron's just not had a good season, man. He has just struggled here in 2020. 34th for Josh Bilicki. 35th, Garrett Smithley. 36th, J.J. Yeley. 37 goes to Reed Sorensen. 38 goes to Joey Gase. 39th goes to Timmy Hill. And finishing last in 40th place goes to B.J. McLeod. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this race. In my opinion, this race was not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. But in my honest opinion, this race needs to be shortened. This race felt way too long. The race got strung out at the end of the thing. There was definitely a lot of good battles in this race. We saw battles for the lead, plenty of lead changes, multi-groove racing. We got to see a lot of that in this race. And this track is a really good racetrack. And yes, eventually I think this racetrack is going to have to be repaid eventually. But in my opinion, the race is too long. I think unless a racetrack is a crown jewel event, I don't think any race should be above 400 to 350 miles. A 500-mile race is not necessary in NASCAR anymore these days, especially with the fact that the engines don't blow up. You're not seeing a lot of attrition in these races anymore. Cars can last a lot longer with the engineers who are making these cars. So you're not seeing as much attrition in these races. You're not seeing as many big issues that are happening in these events. And I just think at this point that these races do need to be shortened. Because of that, I am going to give this race a 6 out of 10. I wanted a lot more in this race. I think Atlanta is a great racetrack. I just think that these races do need to be short. On top of that, I don't think the package made this race good. I think it made it a little bit worse than what Atlanta could provide. But, I mean, and to be honest with you, you were not going to touch Kevin Harvick in this race. Once Kevin Harvick got the race lead, he just had the best car all day. He was not going to be touched. It was going to be very, very difficult to pass Kevin Harvick in this race. And you were just going to have a lot better car than Kevin Harvick. You were going to have to hope that he got off pit road second so he could get strung up on that high side, because he actually ended up having a really bad restart at one point in this race. He fell like 4 or 5, like 4 or 5 spots back. He had to charge all the way back up to the front. He eventually did, and he just took off with this race. So, anyway, that is going to be my review from the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500, the 10th race of the season. Well, we have a race coming up here on Wednesday night. We have the Martinsville race. That race I am really excited for. We got the short track package again. I think that we're going to have a very exciting race at Martinsville. And I don't think this time we're going to have to deal with aero problems at Martinsville International Speedway, which is something nice and something new that we're not going to have to see at Martinsville. We saw last year, because the racing at Martinsville, if it wasn't for aero problems, is really, really good, and I'm excited for that. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today's race review. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn notifications on so you can be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Links in the description below for that. And comment your thoughts on today's race. What did you think of today's race? Let me know in the comments below. So, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.